"You should consider a transfer." That's how the battalion command sergeant major phrased it when Staff Sergeant Petra Novak failed her third qualification at the Advanced Sniper course, missing standards by margins so small they were almost insulting. She was 27 years old, had already proven herself in combat with 19 confirmed kills, and was being told she didn't have what it took to move to the next level. The instructors said her fundamentals were perfect, but she lacked the instinct for extreme-range shooting. 2 months later, in the mountains of eastern Afghanistan, she would make a shot at 3,647 yards that would rewrite the battalion's record books and prove that persistence beats talent when the stakes are high. Enough. Staff Sergeant Petra Novak sat on an ammunition crate at Forward Operating Base Bostik, cleaning her M2010 enhanced sniper rifle with movements that had become automatic. After 5 years of repetition, she was 27, built strong and solid from farm work in her youth, with calloused hands and a face that showed every hour she'd spent in the sun. Her eyes were pale blue, always calculating, always measuring. She'd been in Afghanistan for 8 months, assigned to 2nd Battalion, 503rd Infantry Regiment as part of their sniper section. 19 confirmed kills, countless missions providing overwatch and reconnaissance. She was good at her job, respected by her platoon, trusted by commanders who needed precision fire support. But good wasn't enough. She wanted to be exceptional. She wanted to make the shots that seemed impossible, the ones that changed outcomes. That required skills she was still developing. Want to hear more stories about soldiers who refused to quit until they became the best? Subscribe and don't miss these stories that prove persistence wins. FOB Bostik sat in the Kunar province, surrounded by mountains that rose 10,000 feet and valleys where the enemy moved freely. Petra grew up on a cattle ranch in South Dakota, the middle child in a family of 5 kids. Her father ran 2,000 acres with help from whoever was old enough to work. By 12, Petra was mending fence, moving cattle and handling a rifle when predators threatened the herd. The ranch was isolated enough that calling for help wasn't an option. You solved problems yourself, or you lost money you couldn't afford to lose. Her father taught all his children the same lesson. If something's worth doing, you do it until you can't do it wrong. Not until you're good at it, until you can't fail at it. Petra applied that to everything, fixing equipment, managing livestock, shooting. She practiced until her body understood what her mind was calculating. She joined the army at 21, after a drought nearly bankrupted the ranch. The family needed income, and she needed purpose beyond watching her parents lose everything they'd built. She chose infantry after the combat exclusion was lifted, then specialized in marksmanship. Sniper school came at 24. She passed, but barely. Middle of her class. Competent but not exceptional. That bothered her. She'd never been middle at anything. She'd always pushed until she was the best, or until she broke trying. The army tested her differently than the ranch had. Physical capability wasn't enough. Mental discipline mattered more. And extreme range shooting required something she didn't have yet, the ability to predict conditions at distances where wind, temperature, and even the Earth's rotation affected the bullet. The Advanced Sniper course was designed for experienced snipers who wanted to qualify for extreme-range precision fire. Shots beyond 1,500 meters, where conventional snipers stopped being effective. Petra applied twice and was accepted on her second attempt. She failed the course. Not catastrophically, but definitively. Her fundamentals were perfect. Position, breathing, trigger control. But the long-range calculations defeated her. Wind reading at 2,000 meters. Adjusting for barometric pressure changes. Predicting how terrain affected air movement. She could do it intellectually, could work through the math. But when it mattered, when she had seconds to process information and make the shot, she hesitated. She second-guessed herself. The head instructor, Master Sergeant Cullen, called her into his office after she failed the final qualification by scoring 76 out of 100. Passing was 80. He said she had the dedication and the work ethic, but extreme-range shooting required instinctive understanding. That some shooters developed and others didn't. He recommended she focus on conventional sniper work where she excelled. Petra asked to repeat the course. Cullen said no. The course had limited slots and needed to go to soldiers who showed higher aptitude. He wasn't being cruel. He was being realistic. Some soldiers were suited for certain specializations. Petra was a good sniper. That should be enough. The battalion command sergeant major had the same conversation with her a week later. He said there was no shame in being a conventional sniper. Most never attempted the advanced course. She'd proven herself in combat. Maybe it was time to focus on leadership, on training younger soldiers, on using her experience in ways that didn't require her to push into areas where she struggled. Petra listened, thanked them both, and ignored everything they said. She requested range time whenever it was available. She studied ballistics manuals at night. She tracked weather patterns around Fob Bostik and calculated how they affected bullet trajectory at various distances. Petra knew what failure felt like. She'd failed at things on the ranch, lost cattle to predators she should have protected against, broken equipment because she pushed too hard, made mistakes that cost her family money. But she'd always learned from failures, adjusted, and eventually succeeded. This felt different. This felt like people telling her she'd reached her ceiling. She wasn't failing because of lack of effort. She was failing because they believed she lacked innate ability. That hurt worse than any specific criticism. Her father called it the difference between work and talent. Some things you could achieve through work. Strength, endurance, knowledge. Other things required talent you either had or didn't. He said there was no shame in recognizing your limits and focusing on what you did well. Petra disagreed. She believed limits were just points where most people stopped trying. She'd seen it on the ranch. Animals that seemed impossible to train until someone spent enough time understanding them. Equipment that seemed irreparable until someone studied it long enough to find the solution. She set up a training regimen for herself. Every day off, she practiced extreme range shooting. She documented every shot, range, conditions, result. She started seeing patterns. Her misses weren't random. They clustered in specific conditions, rapidly changing winds, high temperature differentials, complex terrain that created unpredictable air currents. Those were the conditions she needed to master. 3 months after failing the advanced course, intelligence identified a high-value Taliban commander operating in the mountains northeast of Fob Bostik. He was coordinating attacks across the province, moving between villages, using terrain and local support to avoid capture. Multiple operations had failed to locate him. Then a pattern emerged. The commander used a specific ridgeline to observe coalition movements. Scouts had spotted him there twice, always at extreme range, always positioned where conventional weapons couldn't reach him. He felt safe at that distance. He was right to feel that way. Most snipers couldn't make that shot. The battalion commander called a planning meeting. He wanted options for eliminating the target. Standard approaches wouldn't work. Ground assault would be detected hours before reaching the position. Airstrikes couldn't be authorized without positive identification. Hand artillery was too imprecise in mountainous terrain. Master Sergeant Cullen suggested a sniper team might get close enough for a shot if they moved during a night insertion. The range would be approximately 2,800 to 3,200 meters, depending on the team's final position. That was beyond conventional sniper capability, but within advanced sniper standards. The problem was that the battalion didn't have any soldiers qualified at that level. Cullen was qualified but recovering from a shoulder injury. The other advanced qualified snipers were deployed elsewhere. Petra was in the meeting as the senior sniper on base. She said she could make the shot. Cullen looked at her like she'd volunteered to fly. He reminded her she'd failed the advanced qualification. She said she'd been training since then, had made consistent hits at 2,500 meters during practice. The commander was beyond that range, but she could get closer. The battalion commander approved the mission with reservations. Petra would have one chance. If she missed, the target would disappear. She'd be inserted with a scout team that would position her within range of the ridgeline. When the commander appeared, she'd take the shot. They moved out at 300 hours, climbing through mountain terrain for 6 hours to reach a position overlooking the target area. Petra's final shooting position was 3,747 yards from the ridgeline where the commander was expected to appear, farther than she'd ever attempted. Beyond the range of her training, her spotter, Specialist Graves, ranged the distance and went silent for a moment. He said they should move closer. Petra said this was as close as they could get without being spotted. This was the shot. She set up, calculated everything. Bullet drop at that distance required 478 inches of elevation adjustment. Wind was moving at 8 miles per hour, but changing direction as it moved through the valley. Temperature was 87 degrees. She had to account for the Coriolis effect, the Earth's rotation affecting the bullet over that distance. Graves said the math looked right, but the shot was theoretical. Nobody made shots at this range reliably. Petra said she only needed to make it once. They waited 4 hours. Then the commander appeared, exactly where intelligence predicted. Petra had maybe 90 seconds before he moved to cover. She made her final adjustments, controlled her breathing, and felt everything she'd learned over the past 3 months come together. Not thinking anymore, just knowing she fired. The bullet traveled for 6.4 seconds. Through her scope, she saw the commander drop. Graves confirmed hit, target down. The shot was verified at 3,047 yards, the longest confirmed kill in battalion history and one of the longest in theater. Intelligence confirmed the target's identity. The operation was recorded as a complete success. Petra and her team extracted without contact and returned to Fob Bostik 18 hours after insertion. Master Sergeant Cullen called Petra into his office 2 days later. He'd reviewed the mission report and the ballistic data from her shot. He said he'd been wrong about her. Not wrong about his assessment at the time, but wrong about her potential. She'd proven that determination could overcome what looked like natural limitations. She'd trained herself into capabilities that most soldiers never developed. He asked her to return to the advanced sniper course as an assistant instructor. She could help teach other soldiers who struggled with extreme range calculations, who needed to see that success came from persistence as much as talent. The battalion command sergeant major had a different conversation. He said Petra had proven something important about how they evaluated soldiers. They'd been too quick to accept limitations, too ready to redirect people into areas where they showed immediate aptitude. Sometimes the best soldiers were the ones who refused to accept limitations. Petra didn't feel vindicated. She just felt like she'd done what needed to be done. The ranch had taught her that quitting wasn't an option when something mattered. The shot mattered. So she'd made it work. That's all there was to it. 3 months later, she passed the advanced sniper course with a score of 94.